Let's get some more on all of this. Democratic Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee is joining us. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. I want to begin with the Attorney General's truly stunning admission today that he believes spying, he used that word, did occur on the Trump campaign back in 2016, although he wouldn't say whether or not that surveillance was improper. Do you see any evidence of impropriety in the way the FBI or the CIA or when they were involved in that Russia investigation?
I have not seen any improprieties with the FBI or the CIA, but I do see an impropriety by our Attorney General even suggesting there was spying without knowledge and without proof. Unless he has proof, he shouldn't put out any kind of information or thought like that that could lessen the public's respect for our FBI, our Justice Department, and our judicial processes. He's the head of the Department of Justice, and he's put it into a light that is not favorable in the public's eyes, saying somebody in that area might have done spying. That's wrong.
The Inspector General over at the Department of Justice is already conducting an investigation into the origins of the Russia probe. Should the Attorney General conduct his own investigation at the same time, or simply wait to see what the Inspector General's report concludes?
Well, certainly he should wait. There's so many more important things for him to be doing right now with white nationalists rising and hate crimes. We saw racial insignias painted at the fire at Highlander Institute, which was burnt to the ground in Knoxville about 2 weeks ago, a place where Dr. King and Rosa Parks and many environmentalists and labor leaders have trained for years, a spot where white nationalists would find it objectionable, and they painted racial insignia similar to what was at Christ Church and similar to what was seen in Charleston at that church. And there's so many things to be investigating there that are really a threat to the American public safety.
The House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, said today that the Attorney General is, in her words, going off the rails. She also said he's acting more like the Attorney General for the President rather than the Attorney General of the United States. Are you concerned that the President may be compromising Bill Barr's independence?
I think Bill Barr gave away his independence when he accepted the job. I've said it for weeks, probably said it on your show, that the President hired him to be his Roy Cohn. That's what he was hired for, and he's taken the position. It was a Faustian bargain, and they're carrying on. And Bill Barr, if he had a good reputation, which some people said he did, he's losing it. He's acting less like a Janet Reno, less like an Elliot Richardson, and more like a John Mitchell every day.
The President tweeted earlier this afternoon that the Mueller investigation was, and he used the word treasonous. Treason, as you know, is punishable by death. What's your reaction to that inflammatory rhetoric by President Trump?
The President doesn't know what he's talking about treason or anything else. He says whatever comes to his mind, and that's really sad. The whole idea of the truth and people speaking honestly to the American public and trying to encourage people to know facts and have fact-based discussion is being eroded. The truth is being thrown out, and Trump is the leader in that. And that is a terrible legacy for him, and it's terrible for America and for a country that's based on the rule of law and with respect for law enforcement.
The Attorney General also refused to say whether or not Special Counsel Robert Mueller intended for him to make a determination on the very sensitive issue of obstruction of justice rather than simply leaving the matter to Congress. Does it worry you that Barr either couldn't or wouldn't answer that question?
Well, I think he wasn't going to lie, because the fact is Mr. Mueller would not have wanted him to make that decision. I think he left it there without a conclusion, saying it did not exonerate him, to leave it up to Congress. And it never has an Attorney General stepped into the breach like this. There's no legislation, a law that says he should. There's no tradition that says he should. It's never happened before. And Mueller probably didn't anticipate it happening. But this was why Barr was hired, and he's doing everything he can to help this president. Think about it, Wolf. You've got a president who we know is number one, unidentified. What's the term?
Individual number.
Individual one. That's the president. That the president of the United States, individual one, has been indicted for a felony while he's in office. If this was any other time without more crazy things going on, this would be the number one story every single day. Imagine if Harry Truman or Franklin Roosevelt or Dwight Eisenhower or any president in the past, the Bushes, were individual one for a felony, And there's just so much else about this guy that the one fire that would be a tremendous fire isn't even being thought about, because we move on from paying off the models, to influence the election, to get around the campaign finance laws, to dealing with the Russians, to obstruction, to conspiracy, you name it. This is a very sad time in American history, and this is the lowest ebb that a president has ever been in, being, if he is individual one, and we think he is, the only thing worse was Richard Nixon, when they had the goods on him for obstruction, and this is the only other time a president has sunk this low.
Well, I just want to point out individual number one, which everyone assumes was the president, was an unindicted co-conspirator in that allegation. And as you know, the longtime Justice Department policy is a sitting president of the United States can't be indicted.
That's the only reason he's not indicted, is because of that. He's a conspirator to a felony, and it's individual one, and individual one ranks right down there with Richard Nixon.
Congressman Steve Cohen, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.